What's going on, fellas? Sean here from Hammerhead Garage. I figured I'd come on tonight and do a bit of a live stream. Haven't done one of these in a little while. I did one last week for you fellas about brute force stuff, asking questions and whatnot. So I think I'm going to start doing my Sunday night lives again. The snowy season's upon us here, and there's not a whole heck of a lot going on in the garage at the moment. So I figured I'd start up my live streams again to answer questions and just hang out with you fellas. There'll be a few videos come out here and there, but they're going to be pretty sporadic. Basically, during this time of the year, I turn into a wood stove guy. I just basically sit by the stove and watch my butt grow. That's all I do in the winter, pretty much. Cheers, everybody. Evening going. Hope you're all having a good weekend. Last weekend was turkey weekend for my American friends, Thanksgiving. So hopefully you had your share of that. But anyway, not much else really to tell you fellas. The truck, we got it painted. It looks pretty good. Even cut and buffed some of the clear a little bit. And we had a couple of runs on it. And we got those out and just in time to put it away. So right now it's in the shop. And I did have a problem with it actually before I put it away. The charging system stopped working. So I was like, okay, well, what's going on here? So I put a meter on the battery. It was like 1187. No bueno, right? So I put a test light right in the back of the alternator, and there was nothing. So I put it was like a flickering light. So anyway, I started opening up the harness and the bat wire that goes, this is an external regulated 1G alternator, the old Ford style. The bat wire that goes from there to the starter solenoid had melted, and it actually had melted in half and just about set the whole wiring harness on fire. So I guess they had a butt connector or something right in there just before it goes up into the instrument cluster and joins the warning light. There's no ammeter in my truck, but there is a warning light. There's a no charge light. So just before that, it had melted. So anyway, my plan as of right now, I think everything works fine. The alternator should be good, and the external regulator is fine. Of course, it's a Motorcraft. You can't kill those things anyway. But I think I'm just going to splice and heat shrink the wire with a little heavier gauge. The wire that was on it, I think, was a 14 gauge. I'm going to step up to an 8 or a 10 gauge wire, and it'll be a little bit heavier duty. So maybe it'll be a little better. And then try it and see how it is. Besides that whole process, I got a bunch of parts coming for the 8.8, which we're finally going to get built this winter to get in the truck. And we're going to step up the gears quite a bit. We're going to go from a 342 ratio to a 430 ratio is the plan. So that should liven things up for the old girl. She'll be spinning for sure now. But anyway, the goal this year for the trucks, I'm going to try and get anywhere in the 12s. The problem with that is the racetracks up here in Canada are closed. It's killed everything. It's been 2 years since there's been a racetrack you could go to here and have your car or your truck officially timed. So it looks like either a G-Max performance meter or a Draggy is in my future. So they're pretty accurate anyway. But some guys are telling me they're within 1 or 2 tenths of a second. So somewhere in there, you know. But the thing of it is if you're just running street tires, I really don't see much of a point. Because you're going to spin. It doesn't matter how hot your combination is. If you can't hook, you're going to be just spinning. And spinning ain't winning. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That's the truth. So I don't know. I got a set of weld wheels that'll fit under it, and I might put a set of Mickey Thompson slicks on her, or some bias ply stiff wall slicks on her, and see if we can get them hot and maybe get her to hook a little better. And I just want to get it somewhere in the 12s. I don't even care where. Naturally aspirated. So we've got some ideas for a few mods for the motor. I was thinking about maybe a higher ratio rocker to lift the valves a little more. I did a couple of rough calculations, figured out that would be worth approximately 20 to 25 horsepower just by lifting the valves another 30 thou. So we'll try that maybe and see how that goes. The heads could be ported more too. I just have a basic cleanup on them, but there definitely is more meat in there, and they could be cleaned up quite a bit. The only problem at this point is anything you do to the thing, you're upping the RPM where it makes power. So you're making your power in the mid range to, like, say 6,000. You're just pushing that power range up even higher. And I don't really want to be spinning the motor to 7,000 RPM to make maximum horsepower with it. Even though a friend of mine, Tim, says that that's what they used to do all the time, and just spin them to 7. And, or even beyond that. So small block Fords are pretty tough little motors. So, but anyway, that and just doing the odd little bit of ATV work. There's a little bit coming in here and there. I'm seeing the odd machine sneak in. I got another TRX 350 that we're working on, doing another top end. And for a guy who was smoking quite bad, so I'll be working on that a little bit. I have a little carburetor that I have to put in the ultrasonic bank this week, so I might do a little video, show you guys how to use the ultrasonic cleaner and what it does and how to use it. And, there's a few of you fellas might be interested in that, but in any case. I got my tea, just hanging out. Got a fire going there. It's fairly chilly here tonight. Not super, super cold. Last night it got down to minus 10 Celsius. Right now it's showing minus 2 degrees Celsius outside. So it's a typical, early winter day here. We had a little bit of snow overnight, probably about 2 centimeters, which is not really even anything. Just a little dust to cover everything up. So we were in the process last week of walking around and picking up everything that was laying around outside in the house, because in Canada here, if you don't pick up your snow shovels or anything that you might need, forget it. You're never finding it again until spring, until the snow melts. So we're in the process of doing that. What else is going on? Not too much. I think next Saturday we're going to a farm in Nova Scotia to meet with some friends and just have a little Christmas, kind of pre-Christmas get together type deal. There may or may not be a sleigh ride involved with that. We were at one with they had a couple of Percheron horses pulling a sleigh, and that was pretty fun. Those horses are some strong, man. You think you know what horsepower is? Wow, you should see full size Percherons or Clydesdales that pull in a wagon with 30 people in it. Holy whistling. You wouldn't think the horses would be able to do it, but they can pull even more than that. And they used to use them in the woods here in Nova Scotia years ago to pull logs, like to haul timber. Like they used to log in the wintertime, and they used to use them to haul logs out of the woods. And I've even heard stories where they'd pull logs out on their own, and then they go to the house, and then the grandmother she'd be baking in the kitchen. She'd go out and unhook the team, and then the team would know automatically where to go, and they'd head right straight back into the woods. Paul Phoenix, how you doing tonight, buddy? What's going on? They'd head right back into the woods, and they'd hook another load of logs onto them, and away they go back up to the house again. So they do that straight all day kind of deal, right? But anyway, yeah, like I said, things get pretty slow here in Kanakistan here in the wintertime, so there's not a whole heck of a lot going on. But as videos become available, I will definitely be posting them up. If you're looking to see explosions and all kinds of other stuff, you might want to go somewhere else. Howie Mack, hello from New Brunswick, Canada. What's going on, Howie? Nice to have you guys on here tonight. If any of you fellas are listening, you got questions about ATVs or your machine or your motorcycle or whatever, fire away. I'm here to answer questions as well as hang out. And I was going to come on at 8:30 p.m. Halifax time, but we got some people coming over here in about an hour, so I figured, well, I'll just send the boys a little message here and get on a little bit earlier, and that'll work out better. But normally on Sunday nights, I do my live streams at 8:30 p.m. Halifax time zone. So if you just Google search or whatever Halifax time zone 8:30 p.m., it'll probably even tell you where that is, like what time that is wherever you're living, right? the guys that are from the Maritimes, like Howie and whatnot, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the same time zone. Newfoundland's a half an hour difference, but basically, yeah, like if you the further west you go, the earlier it is. Here's a question, Paul Phoenix. I got an XV750 Virago. That's how I know your channel. Oh yes, okay, cool. Yeah, the XV750 was a really good machine. I'm still riding my 1000. She's been rock solid. I put a new set of pulse generators in that bike this year, and it made quite a difference in it. I also ditched the stock igniter and went to a Camco electronic digital box. That helped a lot with everything, with power, with starting, with the whole deal. I don't know. I mean, some guys have had good luck with the dual carburetors. If they're set up right and they're working, it's hard to beat them, to be honest. But I went to the single carb mod because I figured, you know what, that's a lot easier to tune. There's less problems with anything else. If you have any issues, you look right down. It's right there, accessible. It's right by your leg, so you can quickly find the problem. And that's basically why I did it. But I mean, like I said, I know people that do have the stock setup, and the two. Well, if we're talking 1000 or 1100, the stock Hitachis or the newer Mikuni carburetors, and they've had no issues with them. But it's all in how much wear they got. Howie Mac, I have a 2008 XB12. Need a Jardine tune and stock tune. Okay, 2008 XB12. Jardine, yeah. Jardine makes good. They make good exhaust pipes and mufflers and stuff, performance stuff. But yeah, there's definitely stuff available for that kind of thing. Tuning's it's a thing. Like some people think, like if you get these single carb mods or whatever, and you bolt it onto your Virago, that you don't have to tune it. You might get lucky, but the chances of getting lucky are pretty slim. There's really no such thing as out of the box tuning, even though guys are saying, "Oh, well, all you got to do is just hook this programmer up and you're good." That may be the case, but most times, from what I've experienced, it's not the case. So the best way to tune things is just go. Like, you can follow along on my video for the Virago. I think I got 5 or 6 new sets of spark plugs. So I had like 8 plugs or 10 plugs. And I just tuned the idle circuit. I tuned the mid range, and I tuned the high speed jet, the jet needle jet circuit, which is like 3/4 to full throttle. And then I was doing plug chops. And if you guys know what a plug chop is, you hold the throttle at that throttle position you're trying to tune for, and then you reach over and hit the kill switch, and then just let the bike come to a stop and pull the plugs out of it once it cools off a little bit, and then have a look at the color and the fuel ring and stuff. And like I said, the best way to learn how to read plugs is there's all kinds of internet videos. Just go check out a video here on the tube, and you'll see how to do that. I use not a microscope, but a magnifying glass so that I can really see what's going on in there. And it takes time, it takes patience. Like I said, rarely you're going to get a spot on tune right out of the get go. Now, fuel injection, that's entirely different subject altogether, because now they have the power commanders and they have the ability to mixture. They can change timing maps. They can do all sorts of things that you don't have the ability to do with a carburetor. So that does make the tuning quite a bit easier. Yeah, like Howie says, he's using ACM SPI with a USB dongle plugged into the PC. Well, that's that's an easier way of doing it. It's more spot on. It's less trial and error with that method. His fuel injection is different because most of those systems, they got oxygen sensors, so you can tell by the O2 readings what it's doing for fueling, and whether it's rich or lean or wherever it is. Yeah, the single carb mod, Paul Phoenix says single carbs means lower consumption and lower power torque. Maybe a little bit. I never really noticed much difference. I actually noticed quite a jump in torque because I used a smaller carburetor. It's a 30 millimeter Mikuni, the VM30. And so the torque numbers actually did jump up. As far as horsepower top end goes, I think I lost about 500 RPM on the top end. But anyone that's ever ridden a Virago over 100 miles an hour knows that it's a pretty dodgy proposition to begin with. So I wasn't too worried about it because I don't do my riding up there. I do most of it down the lower end. So for me, it made sense. But if you're looking for an all out ultimate horsepower machine, you're probably not going to start with the Virago platform anyway. But if you do, then you'd be better off with the larger series carbs. Maybe go to like a 38 or a 40 millimeter HSR or something like that, or a flat slide even if you can afford it. I know those CR flat slides are nice carburetors. They're very expensive. I've never seen one below $800 in Canada. They're super expensive, but you can get good results with them if you know what to tune for. The problem with the old Virago motor is just not a lot of compression there. It's fairly low compression motor. It's more like the early shovel heads and stuff like that. 8-9 to 1 compression. With pump gas, if you want to make power in a bike engine, a V-twin, you got to get the compression up a little bit, and you got to have a little bit more lift, a little more duration. Some head porting never goes astray either. And those things are, especially for a bike that's not that doesn't have the ability to get aftermarket parts for that type of thing, can be a little bit difficult to do. Torque, yeah, if you're interested in torque mostly, then I would stick with just the basic VM30 if you're going to go with the single carburetor, because I did notice quite a difference in torque. It definitely, you can feel it in the lower gears, especially 1, 2, and 3. You can feel the jump. But yeah, like I said, if you're really interested in high RPM racing and that sort of thing, then the Virago is probably not the best platform for that. You'd be better off served with something else, like a GSXR or a 1250 Thunderbolt, or like a Suzuki Bandit or something like that. That might be a little bit better deal, better platform. Even the old Z1s and the KZ, the Kawasaki bikes, those things would get down. Yes, sir. Those things would get down. I've had a few 100-mile-per-hour chooches on those things. Let me tell you, like for 70s technology, I used to call them flexi flyers because the frame was just rubbery. They weren't much for handling, but man, oh man, they'd pull the mail. VMAX, yes, sir. Yep. I had a V65 Sabre Boys 1985, and it had an Eaton M35 blower on it, a supercharger that I built at school. And we dynoed that, and it made 166 at the wheels. So it was a fairly mighty machine. It was actually somewhat scary because it was a wheelie monster. But anyway, I built that whole thing in fourth year motorcycle, and had access to everything, though, the lathes and Bridgeport mills and everything else. I made the manifold myself. Used a Chevy 202 valve for the blow off. I actually had a Mikuni HSR 44 millimeter carburetor. It was a draw through carb. You draw through the carburetor, then in through the blower, and then down into the cylinders. It worked pretty good. Howie Mac. I also have a 79 CX500. It was really clanky. Shut it off. Now it seems locked up. I'm thinking timing chain is jammed. They have a weird timing chain adjuster. Yeah, they do, and that is a very distinct possibility. The CX500, so they're normally pretty rock solid. They don't really have a lot of issues generally with those things, but yeah, the best thing to do would be to pull plugs out of it, Howie, and use a wrench and turn the sucker over by hand. And if you hit something solid, stop. Don't push on it. At that point, what I would do would be pull the motor and then pull the valve gear off and see if it'll spin over without the valve train on it, cams and all that stuff. And just, you have to get in there and just dig around and see what went wrong. Something could have broke. The tensioner could have broke. Anything's possible. Won't turn at all. Okay, well, if that's the case where it won't turn either way, it's time to take it apart. Get it all apart is what I would recommend, because and by all apart, I mean take it all the way apart, because if you don't and there's something else going on deep inside the thing, you're not going to be satisfied with it. So take the thing apart, order a gasket kit for it, and fix what's wrong. That's what I do whenever I get to that stage where a motor won't turn at all. It's time for it to come down. Thanks for sharing, guys. I gotta go sleep. Have a nice time. Thanks, Paul, for dropping in. We'll see you maybe next Sunday. But anyway, yeah, that's the way those things go. But it depends on how you want to use the thing. Like I always tell people, buy the machine that you think you're going to use the most. And by that, I mean the type of riding that you actually do. Like if you race, buy something for performance. If you like to ride off-road as much as you like to ride on-road, then get yourself a street trail bike, right? Something that's maybe street legal, but it's also high enough, like you know, the KLR 650, Tenere, something like that, that you can ride on the street or off the street. Or if you're just strictly cruiser guy like myself, then the choices are pretty obvious. You just get a cruiser. I'm kind of a big fella. I don't like sitting like cramped up like a dog screwing a football kind of deal. I like being stretched out, right? So I kind of like the stretched out, sitting normal with my legs in the air kind of riding. That seems to be the deal for me. But in any case, everyone's different, and a lot of that depends on whereabouts you live in the country and what type of riding they do there. You know, I know some guys they don't really ride on the street because there really isn't much street riding, but they do ride off road. Like I got a buddy who lives in Arizona, and he's into bull tacos. That seems to be his thing. He's got like a '68 bull taco. I'm not even sure the model of it, what it is, but he rides that thing all over the place. And he's got knobby tires on it, and he goes in the desert with it, and he takes it everywhere. But that's the type of riding he likes to do, right? And then I have another friend that's got a house in Arizona. He lives in Canada, but in the wintertime he goes to Arizona and he keeps a Harley down there. He rides up here in Canada during the riding season, and then he flies down to Arizona and he rides down there during the winter up here. Which, if you can do, I mean, more power to you, in my opinion. Florida seems to be a nice place right now, I think. I think if I was going to go anywhere in the U.S. at the moment, I'd probably be Florida. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, and I put that video out for the brute force guys this week because there seemed to be a lot of confusion about all the different types of things that can go wrong with those. And most of the time, like I said, it's the reason those things jam up and they have so many problems is because think of the environment they're in. They're living in muck, filth, dirt, water. They're getting ridden really, really hard. Sometimes the fans aren't working on them and they're overheating, and there's all sorts of scenarios there, right? So, I mean, they have some fairly sophisticated, expensive electronics on them too, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's the way they do it. So those actuators, the one on the belt drive cover and the one down by the front axle for the 2-wheel, 4-wheel switch, they go bad a lot. And last time I looked, they were between $450 and $500 Canadian to replace those. So it's a fair chunk of change when you get them in the water and break them. But anyway, things like backfiring through the carburetor, backfiring through the exhaust, hard starting, sluggish, no power, those types of things. That's the whole reason why I like to get on and kind of give you guys the benefit of some of the things that I've seen. Maybe you can fix your machine without having to spend a ton of money. Dr. Art's Hot Rod Rehab, what's going on, my friend? I was briefly on your live stream there, and I left you a little comment there. Howie Mack, a 2000 Polaris 500 Sportsman, seems to the all-wheel drive isn't working. Where should I look first? All-wheel drive isn't working. I'm pretty sure on those things there is an actuator on them. I'm not exactly sure where it is. The very first thing I would do would be to jack the bike up and put it on jack stands and put it in 4-wheel drive. And just see if the front wheels, be careful, but just see if the front wheels are indeed locking up or they're not locking up. And then from there, I'm not sure if there's a fuse for those. I don't think they're electrical in that way where it's a fuse, but check your fuses. I always recommend to you fellows that own these older machines, and by older I mean anything like older than 2008. get yourself a factory service manual. Trust me, boys, trust me. It's the best money you're ever going to spend. Okay, and you can go on eBay. Sometimes you can get a used manual from different places. Sometime I got my hard drive here, and it's probably got, I don't know how many manuals I got on there now, but a lot of them I got just off the internet. I just put it on a 1 terabyte hard drive. I have it right here actually. And then whenever I need a manual, I just plug this thing in and I pull the it's just got a USB cord on the other end. I pull the manual up and bingo bango, there's your manual. But yeah, there could be wires going into the actuator there, Howie, that are frayed, or I've seen a lot of damage lately from mice, believe it or not. If the machine's sitting inside a shed or even outside, sometimes mice will get in and they'll do a considerable amount of damage, boys. I had one where I had to take the whole front plastic off of the machine, including the front rack. And there was a electrical unit in there, and it had about, I don't know, there was probably 30 plugged electrical accessories in there. Well, the mice had eaten through about 50% of it. So I had to do about 40 little splices in there with heat shrink and stuff and repair all those wires. And you'd be surprised at the damage they can do and the places they can go in that you wouldn't even think they can get in there, but they're in there. Airboxes seems to be the #1 place for them. I don't know why, but I guess it's warm and dry in there, so they're able to get into the airbox. But always have a look at that. If your machine was starting the day before and then all of a sudden it won't run, pull the cover off the airbox and have a look in there. You could have some visitors that are camping or hanging out in your airbox. It does happen, believe it or not. I had one time. I opened up the airbox and there was a mother mouse and there was 3 little babies in there. They're only the size of your finger. So the mother took off, and I just took the shop vac and I sucked up the babies, and then I opened up the lid of the shop vac and poured them out on the ground. And I went in and had a coffee. When I come back, every one of them little baby mice was gone. The mother must have carted them off. So anyway, that's just one way you can get rid of them. People say use dryer vent or like those dryer sheets and all that sort of jazz. I've tried all that, and it doesn't seem to make much difference. If they want in, they're getting in. Pretty much end of story on that one. But anyway, don't overlook the obvious, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell you. If you're having a problem with your machine, the way we do it is we start with the simplest of simple things and we graduate in steps slowly towards the hard stuff. So start simple. Is there fuel in the tank? You'd be surprised how many times the thing's empty. It's not getting any gas. Maybe the petcock, if it's a vacuum operated, maybe the petcock is not working anymore. The vacuum operated petcock. If that's the case, and it has another setting, there's usually on and off, and then there's also prime. If that's the case, flip it over to prime and then try and start the machine. And if it goes, then you've got a problem with the vacuum operated petcock on the machine. Plugged filters. Low battery, that's a common one. Your charging system's not working. Your battery voltage is falling off to the point where your coils, they don't build up spark energy anymore. Your igniter, it won't build up enough power to actually send that voltage to the secondary side of the coil and fire the plug. That happens often. Stators sometimes go out. Voltage regulators on those machines, they tend to be in horrible places, like in the back, where they can get caked up with mud and we throw rocks up on top of it. And you'd be surprised how many times that's the problem. I also had an issue one time where the guy was complaining every time he turned the ignition switch on, the main fuse, the 30 amp fuse would blow. So anyway, it ended up at my shop. So what I did is I took the voltage regulator plugs in the back of it and I unplugged it. Then I turned the key on and the main fuse didn't blow. Oh, okay. I had another 30 amp fuse there that I could burn, so I plugged them back in, the voltage regulator plug, put a new fuse in it, tried it again, pop, burn the fuse out. So what was going on there was the voltage regulator had a short. It had an internal short inside it, and it was causing it the power to backfeed in through up into the relay box or the fuse box and blow the fuse. Also, ignition switches sometimes can do that if they're bad. If you got an ignition switch, and here's a good point: if you got an ignition switch and it's sitting out where the weather can, like the rain, can get right down inside it, Never hurts to take some WD-40 and to fill that switch. Just shoot a whole pile of it in there and clean all that garbage out of there. Like if there's any water in it, or sometimes you can get lucky and take the switch apart at the back and clean the contacts and stuff, and it'll start working. Save you some money doing that. But just the simplest of things. If you have the ability to store the machine inside, by all means do that. If you can't, then I would highly recommend, if it's a machine you depend on, get a cover. Get some sort of a cover for it. So keep the water out of your switches, out of your ignition switch, out of your turn signal, out of your run switch, things like that. Winches, well, they're pretty easy to troubleshoot. Get a test light, test where your wires from your winch come into your contactor, see if they're lighting up when you push the button each way. And they should be powered on the red one full time. If there's not, then there's a problem. Usually that stuff, it's just is either the contactors are bad, or you got a switch that's bad, or there's a relay in there somewhere and the relay's gone, or something to that effect. They can usually be rectified pretty easy. But anyway, anything like that, I mean, it's just, the thing of it is, when you work at the trades, and like this trade in particular, you get to the point you see so much stuff over the course of years and years of working on these things that it begins to repeat a little bit, some of it. And so certain machines, okay, well, that's generally a problem with these things. So maybe look at that. And a lot of times it is that, because they're pretty specific sometimes in their trouble. So, I mean, that's why people ask me questions, because I do run into a lot of different machinery. Not everything I do, I work a lot on, but, Kawasaki for sure. Any of the Japanese products. Polaris, yes, I do work on a little bit of those once in a while. Especially the Polaris 800s, those side-by-sides, and the Razors. there's lots of I could stay in business just doing wheel bearing replacements on them things. But anyway, yeah. Stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, get a service manual. Get yourself a cheap multimeter. I don't know, you guys down in the States probably buy stuff from Harbor Freight or one of them places. Just get yourself a cheap multimeter, learn how to use it. If you're not sure how to use it, there's all kinds of videos online that can tell you how to use the multimeter. That alone, just knowing how to use a multimeter, will save you hundreds of dollars in parts. You'll more than pay for it. We got Antoine. Hey man, I hope you're good. Just talked about battery problems and consequences. Do you think a corroded or bad battery terminal could cause misfire on the front cylinder of a Virago 535? Yeah, it's possible, but generally the battery terminal would, the power from the battery would go to the ignition box, and it'll go to both coils. So if it's just causing a problem on the front cylinder, what I would do is I would take the coil for the rear cylinder and I'd move it to the front, or take the front coil and move it to the rear and see if the problem follows. You get what I'm saying? So if it's misfiring on that front cylinder, put that coil on the rear. If all of a sudden it's firing fine on the front cylinder, but it's still missing on the rear, then you got a coil issue. Or it could be the wires going to the coil, or the grounds. Grounds are super important on ignition systems. It could also be, if it's a 535, it could be your ignition box. Lots of times the water gets in those. They're definitely not sealed, those boxes. So there might be some bad solder joints in there. Check your boots, your plug boots. There's usually an ohm reading on the ends of those boots. They should usually 5,000 ohms. Sometimes those boots will go bad. They just screw off the wire. You can test it with an ohm meter on both sides of the wire. It should be 5K, 5,000 ohms. If it's not, maybe that's the problem. Another thing you could do, a quick, easy thing, would be to take that spark plug out of that front cylinder and just put a new one in. Lots of times I've seen plugs that sometimes go bad. Even brand new out of the box, they can be bad. So try those simple things first. Dr. Art, you decided to go early this season on the live feed. No, just tonight, Art. I'm going to go back to 8:30 starting next Sunday. We have some people coming over, some folks coming over here in about a half an hour. So I decided I was going to get on early. It just made more sense for tonight anyway. Usually I go at 8:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 on Sunday nights, Halifax time zone. So if you're not sure where that is, where you live, just get on the internet, type in 8:30 Halifax time zone, and then you can usually tell you, it might even say right there what time you are and what time that is, so you know how many hours difference it is. But anyway, I normally don't do a lot of live streaming in the summertime because I'm so busy with machines and stuff. But now it's my slow period. Like I said, I like to sit by the wood stove, put wood in it, and just watch my ass grow. That's kind of my thing in the wintertime. And then I get busy in the summer, like too busy. And then, I like to take it easy in the wintertime. So I got more time available. So, if you guys got questions and queries and you want, stuff you need to know, now's the best time, right? So that's why I decided to have the live streams again, start them Sunday night. Sunday night seems to be decent for most folks because they're, if they got kids, they usually put the kids to bed early or whatever it is, right? I'll get back to live feeds in January. Yeah, January probably works better for you, eh? So anyway, did you get the oil leak fixed on the Falcon? I was wondering about that. I know you'd done a video or you said you were looking for oil leaks on the Falcon there. But anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much the majority of what I do is just troubleshoot. I'm a problem solver. That's essentially what I call what I do is problem solving 101. That's what being a mechanic is, in my estimation. I don't just throw parts on things. I hate doing that. It ends up costing a lot of money because you're wrong. If you're wrong, I like to troubleshoot things and find out exactly what something's doing. And then if it's doing that, then I can figure out what I need to do. What's Dr. Art saying here? It needs a ready sleeve for the rear pinion. Ah, okay, gotcha. So it's not holding a seal, eh? You should be able to get a ready sleeve. Yeah, that'll fix it up, man. Throw that in there and a new seal, and you'll be off to the races. What rear end's in the Falcon? Is it like an 8-inch? But anyway, yeah. So that's the best way of doing it. Like I said, spend the $80 or $100 or whatever it might be for the service manual. Get the factory one, boys. The Chilton's manual is okay, but it leaves a lot of stuff out. Get the real McCoy factory one. If you've got a Kawasaki, get the Kawasaki one. If you've got a Honda, get the Honda one, or Yamaha or whatever it is. Pay the money once to get a good manual because it's going to pay you back. And like I said, like that, just having that and a multimeter is going to save you a ton of money because you'll know what's wrong and what's right. And there's even procedures in there that tells you what the meter should say if you're testing a specific thing. And that alone is going to save you some money. Dr. Art's Hot Rod Rehab. New seal, still drips. It's all the 725. Takes the same size pinion and seal as the 8 or the 10.5. Oh, okay. So the new steel, with the ready sleeve, the new seal still drips. Huh. Well, in that case, buddy, I'd have to say your pinion's really badly worn if a ready sleeve doesn't fix it. So there's something that's odd. Either that or else you're not getting the right seal in there for some reason or damaging it, putting it in. I've seen that too a couple times. Antoine, thanks, man. Everything you talked about is new or okay. Compression test done and okay too. I'm running out of ideas for my front cylinder problem. Just do what I told you there, bud. Just change the coil over to the rear and see if it follows it. If it does, that's the issue. Check your wiring, go into the coils, check your wire, check your igniter box connections, check all your grounds, clean them, and put a new spark plug in. Just try a new plug for the $8 or $6 or whatever it is for spark plug. That could be the problem. I have a broken positive terminal that I ordered. See if it will change something. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. And we appreciate you guys watching our videos. That's why I do them. I mean, I can tell you, even though we're monetized here, I'm not making tons of money off doing these videos. I could make more in a day's work than I make in a month So we're not doing it for that reason. We're doing it because, I genuinely want people to learn about mechanics and fix their stuff. Because before I was a mechanic, boys, and I'm still a rider. Like, I ride too, and just because I'm a mechanic doesn't mean it's free to fix my stuff either. So if my stuff craps the bed or has a problem, I have to put parts on it and troubleshoot and go through the same procedures you guys do. And when there's a part that's bad, I have to order the part and it has to come in and I have to change it out. And, it's not free for me to do it. What's Dr. Art saying? There is wear on the pinion. Waiting for the sleeve. Oh, you haven't put the ready sleeve on the pinion yet. Yeah. I had an axle one time, Art, on a 7.5 rear end that I put 3 seals on it and the damn thing was still leaking. And of course, there wasn't an option on this particular axle for a ready sleeve. So I just went to Rock Auto and I got a brand new axle and stuck it on there with a new seal and finally stopped leaking. But it ruined 2 sets of brake shoes and everything else, right? But I did find out later that you can actually clean those brake shoes up. You can boil them up and you clean all that oil and grease and shit off of them. I didn't know that at the time, but yeah, I mean, you still learn things. I learn stuff all the time, every day. It's a learning experience. For instance, we had this Harley at our shop this summer, and the thing would not start reliably on the first crank. We tried everything. I put new cam chain tensioners. It was a twin cam, and we tried everything I knew. A new battery. I checked the fuel pump, thought it might not be up to snuff, so we changed the whole in-tank pump and lines, fuel pressure regulator, the whole thing. Put a new crank seal in it, and then it seemed to be okay for a while, but then he brought it back to us. Well, what it ended up that the starter motor wasn't turning the engine over fast enough to get the injection to start pumping fuel early enough, believe it or not. So all it was that we ordered an all balls starter motor, changed it out, and it's been firing first crank ever since. So, I mean, that just goes to show you that even mechanics, sometimes you'll sit there and you'll scratch the old noggin for a while and, you'll try stuff and not be sure that it's necessarily going to fix it. Especially when you get a problem like this that didn't have like a check engine light come on or something like that. Because sometimes the check engine light doesn't illuminate if you have a problem, believe it or not. There are circumstances where it does not come on. So if it doesn't come on, it's not showing any codes. There's no stored codes in the history. How are you supposed to figure out what's going on with the machine, right? Then what happens then is you go back to logic theory that you've learned and old school ohms testing with a meter. That's where that tends to go. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up for tonight, boys. I appreciate everybody coming on. Thank you very much for your attention. If you'd like to come on the next live stream, it'll be next Sunday at 8:30. But I will put a warning. I will put a reminder on the channel this week. It's just look in your feed. You should see it. If you haven't subscribed to me, please do so. Please ring the bell so you'll get all the notifications when we do a live stream. If you ring that little bell, when we're going to do a live stream, you'll get a notification that Hammerhead is going live. So you'll be able to catch all the streams. Please continue to support us. Ask any questions that you'd like. I always answer everybody's question. And again, thank you very much for coming on, and have a great night. And I hope everybody has a good week, and cheers. Thumbs up for War Amps. Stay classy.